primary, in the event that there's a landing and an opportunity to go on board, you will come on board. Okay, John? Mm-hmm. And you need to stay behind to document that. I'll be boarding party member number 1. We can just go around 2, 3, 4, skip you.
5,
6, 7, and you'll stay behind. If there's a close approach, you understand that you'll go and set up the landing, mark out the area with the lights.
I don't make films. I defibrillate people and brief world leaders and lead the Disclosure Project and make contact with ETs.
And, you know, I'm a trauma doctor, emergency doctor, who was running a very busy ER and raising 4 kids. And
I'm a young medical doctor, and I start the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and then we started the predecessor for the what Leon Panetta said, we were spending $110 billion a year to chase 70 Al-Qaeda out in Afghanistan, 70. This is a quote. Go look it up. Leon Panetta, CIA director that I know, who was the CIA director who then became Secretary of Defense. So he was the first CIA director for Obama. And the things I put together for President Obama was an updated list of what I had given to Christopher Cox of the Congress and Bill Clinton and some of your leaders here. The dubious task of sitting on an island in the Great Barrier Reef next month. I've been invited to address 120 world leaders. Last year, the Director of National Intelligence for America was there.
Arrange for your world leaders to confer with us.
And I can't mention it beyond this, but to say that they've asked me to address them on this issue.
You serious?
Because they realize we're killing our planet. And the main focus is energy. So keep a good thought for us next month in Australia. So we're hoping that eventually a critical mass will be reached in the public, but also with some of these world leaders who, by the way, it's not like there's some vast conspiracy. So many people know about this. You know, you can walk through the E-ring of the Pentagon. E-ring is where all the generals and admirals are. It's the outer rings they have to use. That was the site hit by the alleged plane that hit on 9/11. Anyway, a couple years ago, I had some people who were sent over by the president of France, Sarkozy. His Ministry of Defense had written a letter to me saying that they felt it was time for us to make peaceful contact with the ETs. And we did a little project there, a 2,200-acre estate in Brittany. And they tracked objects coming over us on a vector at 200,000 kilometers an hour.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet.
And some of them stopping, and some of them transdimensionally shifting into the field. Amazing stuff.
You serious?
The reason I was ushered in to brief the CIA director is because they knew that we had made contact. And they knew that in 1992, when 4 of these ET craft got vectored in at Pensacola Beach.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet.
I said, look, I've done briefings for, here's a short list, the Director of Central Intelligence, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, senior people who are on the House, various House committees, Government Oversight Committee, presidential staff, the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, what's called J2. Personally, now, I took astronaut Edgar Mitchell to one of those briefings for the Admiral, Admiral Tom Wilson, the briefing I put together for President Obama. And if you go down the list...
You put together a briefing for President Obama?
Yeah.
They asked you to?
Someone senior involved with his team did. And so...
Jesus Christ.
And towards the end of this almost 3-hour briefing that I did for the CIA director, my wife was with me, and I gave him this white paper, this position paper, that a summary of action that the president needed to take and he needed to take. Going back to this dinner with the CIA director and his wife, very smart lady, and she turns in, we're sitting across the table having dinner. I mean, that was the cover story, it was a dinner. And, you know, one of the interesting things, after we put this briefing together for Clinton and, you know, Lawrence Rockefeller, I put the concept together of the best available evidence and all these cases. And then Lawrence Rockefeller hosted Bill and Hillary Clinton at the Rockefeller Ranch, and it had me out there shortly before that. And I know I went up to the UN and met with, back when Boutros Ghali was UN Secretary General, and briefed these guys, and I know all those guys. I know all the SRV people.
There's a whole section of this movie that was left out because the director felt it was too controversial, as if the rest of this isn't. But also there wasn't enough time to go into it. That should be the next version. All right, there are 5 more versions of this, 2.0, 3.0. Back a number of decades ago, they began to develop creatures that look like they're ETs and they're man-made. These are made at Dulce, they're made at the Edwards Complex, Alice Springs. And those are the ones that have been involved in electronic warfare systems, what the public call abductions and mutilations. Now, those are man-made systems. They have integrated circuits in their neural conduct.
Edgar Mitchell claimed to have had a personal experience?
No. He's just investigated it and has concluded that this is all very real. And he did come with me. I invited him to the briefing we set up for the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. I think it was very interesting for him to have learned that people at that level were shaken to their foundations because they concluded this was all real.
Coming down to take over. They made that clear to us in the saucer.
Was the most compelling piece of physical evidence that you've ever encountered?
I would have to say that it's these really well-documented, complex cases that involve documents, radar cases with photographs, and multiple corroborating credible witnesses, such as Provence case of 1981, I believe, when one of these objects landed in a lavender field, of all places.
Must have smelled awesome.
Yeah. Well, it was a commercial lavender farm, and so cool. And it was wee hours of the morning, and this thing lands. The farmer comes out, and
holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
And it's this disc-shaped craft.
How large?
I think it was in the 50-foot diameter range. And there were these little beings outside picking lavender. Now, this sounds crazy, like some out of science fiction.
Like how?
One of our witnesses who was on a retrieval team of retrieving extraterrestrial bodies from craft that we had targeted astronomy. And we also know one of our witnesses who was manning a facility on the Peruvian-Bolivian border that's not too far from this area, was there in the early 90s when we were using a SDI Star Wars system to track ET craft and hit them with electromagnetic pulse weapons, and one was downed and crashed on the Peruvian-Bolivian border.
We hit it with electromagnetic pulse weapons.
Yeah. It's talked about the fact that there are many different species that have been cataloged over the years, and at one point, I think it was in the late 60s, there were like 68 or 69 or something in that range. I don't care about the money. I care
I hate
about...
when people say that. I hate when people say that.
No, I really don't. I mean, this is
Really?
why, now you'll probably strain credulity here, but a former head of Army intelligence approached me in 1992 and offered me the kind of control over a $2 billion fund if I would shut up and close down the disclosure project in CSETI.
Control over a $2 billion fund?
B, with a B.
To do what? What did he want you to do?
He just basically wanted I could do anything with it, so long as I would shut
You could just go big pimping, giant yacht, Ferrari.
Who knows?
No more Dr. Greer.
And then, when I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I really believe that this issue needs to be dealt with properly, the guy went to my wife and tried to convince her to convince me. And this, this is the kind of nonsense.
Did he want you to work for him, or he just wanted you to shut up?
Yes, he wanted me to merge what we were doing with some operation he had, which would have basically subsumed it and co-opted it. And I said no. And then he made another run, and I said no. And then about a month after that, all over the internet, it came out that I wasn't even a doctor. Here I am in this emergency department, and it's a bunch of goons put out there that I'm not even an actual MD. And I'm there, up to my eyeballs in blood and guts in the ER, and this thing breaks. So, they do all kinds of disinformation and psychological warfare stuff. I'm not a conspiracy theory person. I deal with...
Wait a minute. Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
How dare you?
No,
How dare you? I'm not, but just be honest.
I just don't like theories.
Okay, you're a conspiracy person then. But you're dealing about UFO conspiracies.